We're going to drive 7,000 kilometers in 12 days across the Arabian Peninsula, from Dubai on the Persian Gulf, across the Empty Quarter Desert, the Arabian Shield and the Great Nefu Desert, ending at the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba. Stage 1 of our journey was a 1,200 kilometer drive from Dubai to the edge of the world near Riyadh. Stage 2 would be a 1,300 kilometer drive from the edge of the world to Al-Ula. At the end of the last episode, Philip was returning back to Riyadh to buy a new tent. He would meet us later on our journey, just before we entered the Arabian Shield. On the way to the Arabian Shield, we stopped off at the Ushaiger Heritage Village. Hidden in the heart of the Nejd, an oasis-dotted region 200 kilometers northwest of Riyadh, Ushaiger Heritage Village provides a glimpse of a slow-paced Saudi society. Bedouins first settled here 1,500 years ago, and Ushaiger quickly became a popular stopping point for pilgrims crossing to Mecca. Encased in thick walls, Ushaiger is a labyrinth of winding alleyways, shaded pathways and timber-framed walkways crossing between hundreds of mud houses, with palm trees and date trees between them. It includes beautifully renovated houses. These offer a stunning example of Najd architecture. From Ushaiger village, we travelled northwest along the 505 road towards Aqaba. From Aqaba, we would travel 200 kilometers off-road towards Unaiza. To get to Unaiza, we would be crossing the Adahna Desert. The Adahna Desert is also known as the Small Nefu Desert and acts like a sandy bridge between the Great Nefu Desert in the north and the Empty Quarter in the south. Nearly 45,000 square kilometers of magnificent reddish sandy terrain spreading horizontally like veins. Adahna rises around 300 to 600 meters and forms 7% of the sand dunes in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Adahna dunes form into huge star-shaped dunes rising up to 100 meters. We met Philip just outside Aqaba before entering the Adahna Desert. We entered the desert following the Bedouin and camel trails. The trail snakes its way through the desert amongst the towering dunes above. Crossing the desert, there are a number of well-established trails and tracks used by local Bedouins. We crossed the Adahna Desert in around 4, maybe 5 hours. Then we headed on the road towards Unaiza. From Unaiza, we would travel northwest on the road towards Ha'il. Around 100 kilometers before Ha'il, we turned off the 65 freeway on the 427 road towards Taba. From Taba, we headed southeast to Hotaima volcano. There is a graded track from the 427 road to the volcano crater. We camped at the edge of the volcano, which offers stunning views into the crater. It is also possible to scale down the edge of the crater towards the base. The centre of the crater is covered in a white, thick layer of salt rock. The crater is between 3 and 4 kilometers wide and is one of the largest volcano craters in Saudi Arabia. The centre of the volcano offers incredible views of the towering 300-meter cliffs that surround the crater. The next morning, we packed away our camp and headed northwest towards Ha'il, where we would continue our journey towards the Great Nefud Desert. On our way to Ha'il, we were stopped by a local resident who insisted that we join him for food and refreshments on his farm. We were complete strangers to this gentleman, yet he offered us food and refreshments and treated us as if we were one of his family. I was moved by his generosity and kindness. On our journey to Ha'il, I reflected on the words William Thesiger used to describe Arab hospitality in his book Arabian Sands. Gaunt men in rags and hungry-looking children had greeted me and bade me welcome with the sonorous phrases of the desert. Later they had set a great dish before me, rice heaped with round a sheep which they had slaughtered, over which my host poured liquid golden butter until it flowed down onto the sand. When I protested, saying, "Enough, enough," I had the answer that I was 100 times welcome. Their lavish hospitality had always made me uncomfortable, for I had known that as a result of it, they would go hungry for days. Yet when I left them, they had almost convinced me that I had done them a kindness by staying with them. Our route to the Nefud Desert would take us through the Ha'il Pass, a large mountain range to the west of Ha'il. There is an off-road section through the pass, which is around 10 kilometers. Most of the route is on a graded track. Some of the route consists of deep sand and rocks. When we completed the Ha'il Pass, we drove on road to Mushhid. Our plan was to drive from Mushhid to Muthallith off-road across the Nefud Desert. From Mushhid, we drove south across the Arnan mountain range. This area is an ancient crossing post, and the rocks in the mountains are filled with petroglyphs. Leaving the mountain range behind us, the full extent of the Great Nefud Desert unravels before us. Heading south, we drive deeper and deeper into the Great Nefud Desert. Then on the horizon, what appears to be a mirage are strange rock formations piercing through the sand. The deeper we drive into the desert, the larger these magnificent rock formations become. The landscape begins to resemble another world, another place not of this planet. This is one of the most beautiful deserts I have driven through and one of my favourite places in Saudi Arabia. After camping overnight, we packed up in the morning and headed south towards Al-Ula and the final part of this stage. On our way to Al-Ula, we passed by the Ushaiger rock formation. There are 3 arches carved out of sandstone, the tallest one standing 40 meters tall. The rocks are inscripted with petroglyphs, indicating that this was a crossroads for travellers coming from the south to the north. It took us around 3 hours to exit from Al-Ushaiger rock formations to the road to Al-Ula. We arrived at Adahna later that evening. Driving on the road, it was clear there was an issue with my car. Inspecting the rear shock absorber, I could see that it had broken across the harsh terrain that we had covered the day before. I now needed to find a garage to replace the shock, otherwise my trip was over. Despite our efforts, we could not find a garage with the correct part. The garages were telling us that the part that I needed was only available in Riyadh, a 10-hour drive away. We could try and substitute the part with another part, but I was not happy about that and was contemplating driving back to Riyadh.
I'm going to Riyadh.
Why?
My suspension's screwed.
What
I think
happened to
someone's
it?
unscrewed it in the middle of the night.
Was it the same person who also deflated his tyre?
Yeah, they deflated his tyre, then they moved on to my
Can you
new
think of
tyre.
any other possible solution happen?
The possible solution is fix it with some temporary band-aid here.
What about
I
one's
feel like
just as good?
Frankenstein. As I'm going over bumps, it'll be going like that.
The guys were trying to persuade me to replace the part with a temporary part until I got back to Dubai so I could continue the journey. Having planned the route, I knew that we would be travelling through very remote areas where help would not be available. I was therefore worried about fitting a substitute part to my car that may fail later on. Would this be the end of my trip? Would I need to drive back to Riyadh for the replacement part? Join us on the next episode to find out.